Hello, everyone. Welcome to ITMO, which stands for Instant Transformation Moment. And this is when we get to experience our spiritual intelligence together at the same time, which is Wednesday at 12 noon, London time. So before we use the rapid 3Q method to activate spiritual intelligence, I want to spend a little bit of time on talking about consciousness and the brain. And specifically, the topic is why consciousness is not dependent on the brain, that the brain is the receiver of consciousness, not the source of consciousness. So I want to just read a little bit article I wrote on this topic. So I'm going to share the screen and find this article. So the article is called The Neuroscience of Spiritual Intelligence. Just looking for it here. And it seems to be a bit hard to find at the moment. So I can't actually find the article right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you the relevant part. So there'll be a link to the article in the description above this video. So the relevant part of this article talks about studies that have been done on patients in the operating theatre. And it so happens that in some cases, when patients lose all brain function during an operation, as evidenced by the absence of any blood flow and the absence of any neural activity, when they're hooked up to machines that show that, their brain is effectively not working, that in some cases, when these patients recover after the operation, they're able to report events that occurred in the operating theatre while their brains were not functioning, right? So they're able to say things like, oh yes, well, this nurse came in and did this and put my spectacles in the third drawer down, and this other nurse did this, and the surgeon said that, and these accounts given by turned out to be true. And these patients were recounting events that occurred in theatre. Is that is not a product of pain, because they were able to be conscious while their brains were completely inert, completely not functioning. So this is clear scientific that consciousness does not depend on the brain. The receiver of consciousness, when the brain is functioning, the source of consciousness, that the source of consciousness is prior to the brain. Now, of course, this contradicts materialist assumptions that are at the foundation of contemporary neuroscience. Just assumes that the brain is consciousness. Well, this evidence completely contradicts that, and prove the case that consciousness does not depend on the brain, that consciousness can exist in the absence of any brain. Now, this has clear implications for what happens after physical death, right? Physical death, when the body dies, does not mean that consciousness ends. So this is very important evidence. Now, you'll find when you click the link to the article that's in the description above this video, you'll find a link to studies that detail these discoveries. So for those of you interested to follow this up, please do so. It's very enlightening. So let's go on now to sharing this 3Q method for how to activate spiritual intelligence. I use a few slides to illustrate this. Let's see if I can find the slides. Oh yes, here they are. Okay, so you should be seeing on your screen now a symbol. And this symbol stands for 3 dimensions of intelligence: IQ, intellectual intelligence; EQ, emotional intelligence; and SQ, spiritual intelligence. Now, these 3 dimensions of intelligence are distinguishable neurologically because different types of associated with these 3 dimensions. And you can read more about that in the article above this video. Now, this symbol opens out into the twin poles of attention. We have the object pole of attention, and we have the subject pole of attention. So at the object pole of attention is everything we're aware of: thoughts and emotions and memories and beliefs and self-image, you name it. Everything we're aware of is at the object pole. Whereas at the subject pole is simply awareness itself, which is what we are, because we're the one who is aware. We're aware of. This diagram now is the same as the last diagram with the ego and soul. So the ego is of identifying with objects of attention, with your thoughts and emotions, with the states of body and being the ego. So when you're the ego, you believe your thinking mind. You believe you are your mind. The soul is identified with consciousness itself. Self is aware of the mind, but is prior to the mind. The mind is within consciousness itself. So when you identify with yourself, that's called being the soul. So this diagram, therefore, is the human operating system. You're either being the ego or you're being the soul. One or the other. You can't be both at the same time, or you can't experience being both at the same time. You're either being the ego or you're being the soul. So that's our operating system. Of course, the truth is we're always the soul, whether we realize it or not. So when we're being the ego, this is a false sense of self, because you're identified with thinking. And that's not who you are. That's just something you're aware of. But of course, the ego makes this mistake of believing that I am my thoughts. But the truth is, we're always consciousness itself. So the subject pole is the truth of who we are. So, but this is our operating system. We're either being the ego, being the false self, or we're being the soul, the true self. So the key to shifting from ego to soul is through this mechanism of attention, which is what connects ego and soul. And of course, when we shift from ego to soul, that's when we activate our spiritual intelligence. So then the crucial thing is how to go through this mechanism of attention to shift from ego to soul and thus activate our spiritual intelligence. And there's a very good way of doing that called the 3Q method. So I want to illustrate the 3Q method now with another couple of slides. So I'm just going to get these other slides up so you can see what I'm talking about. So let me just locate the relevant slide here. Here we go. Right, so this is your operating system, and it's about shifting from ego to soul via this mechanism of attention. And there are 3 key steps in this mechanism, which are the most rapid means of shifting from object pole to subject pole, from ego to soul. And these 3 steps are notice, feel, and be. So I'm going to describe what these steps are in a moment, and we can all follow these steps as I describe them so that we can all experience our spiritual intelligence together. So step 1 is notice. So notice just means to notice the fact it's our operating system, ego and soul, object pole and subject pole. So it's just about noticing that I am not, in fact, my thinking mind, which of course is our usual presumption. We're usually assuming that I am my thoughts. We're usually being the ego, in other words. So step 1 is just noticing the fact that no, I'm not. I am the one aware of my thoughts. So it's just about noticing the human operating system. And the reason why we have to consciously notice this is that we forget so easily, don't we? With our thoughts so naturally, spontaneously, presuming that I am my thoughts, I am my emotions, when it's not true. I am the one aware of my thoughts. I'm the one aware of my emotions. So step 1 is noticing that, in fact, I'm not my thoughts and emotions. Step 2 is feel. And step 2 is about feeling what it's like at the subject pole as the soul. And for this step, we use the breathing technique. So I'm going to describe the breathing technique now, and you can do the breathing technique along with me as I describe it. Bring your attention to your breathing and just find that still point at the end of the in-breath when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. Did you find that still point there? There's a point at the end of breathing in when you stop breathing in, but you haven't yet started to breathe out. Just find that pause in the breathing. Did you find that pause in the breathing? Now feel what it feels like in that pause. How does it feel for you in that pause when the breathing stops for a moment. By the way, it's important not to hold your breath. It's important just to find that point where you naturally stop breathing at the end of the in-breath. And then feel what it feels like in that pause before you start breathing out again. How does it feel for you in that pause in the breathing at the end of the in-breath? Feels peaceful, doesn't it? The reason why it feels peaceful, of course, is that in that pause in the breathing, the thinking also pauses. Your mind also pauses when the breathing pauses. And that's why you feel the underlying peace. Normally the thinking covers over that peace, so you don't feel it. So just find that still breath and feel what it feels like in that pause in the breathing. When you find that peaceful feeling there, it's time to move to step 3, which is be. Be simply means be that peaceful feeling. And that be that peaceful feeling just means allow the peaceful feeling to go all over your body and mind. So take a look around now, just confirm for yourself that you are now being consciousness itself. You're now being the field of consciousness, and thinking may resume, but you're no longer identified with your thoughts. Thoughts come and go, but you are the awareness within which thoughts come and go. So now you are using your spiritual intelligence. Another word for this is being present. Another word for that is the meditation. The meditation space is simply the space of being consciousness itself and not being any of the objects of consciousness, like thoughts and emotions and perceptions. So this is spiritual intelligence. Now, in this position, as consciousness itself, you have access not only to peace, but all the other qualities of the soul: compassion, love, joy, creativity. All these qualities when you see consciousness itself. So this realization that I am consciousness itself and the experience of that can be done simply by doing these 3 steps: notice, feel, and be. And you can do these 3 steps in association with any activity. It doesn't interfere with the activities that you're doing. You can do it walking down the street. You can do it while talking to someone. So you can do this, use this method at work. In fact, it improves your focus and concentration. So this method can be used anywhere at any time to activate your spiritual intelligence in combination with your IQ and EQ. That's why we call it 3Q, because you're using all 3 Qs: IQ, intellectual intelligence, EQ, emotional intelligence, and SQ, spiritual intelligence, the 3 Qs all together. And this is how you do it. Notice, feel, and be, which we call the. So I hope you'll experiment with this yourself. Whenever you remember to, just use these 3 steps: notice, feel, and be. It's important to include all 3 steps, particularly step 2, feel, using the breathing technique. So experiment with this yourself during the day. Prove to yourself it actually works. And then forever after, for the rest of your life, you'll have a way of shifting from ego and being your soul, and therefore being able to use your spiritual intelligence in any situation. So this is a very powerful method, and it can become your own method of shifting to a higher dimension of intelligence. So I hope you'll join us again next Wednesday at the same time, 12 noon London time. If not, the video will be available on the SQ Facebook page that you can watch after the event. So I'll say goodbye for now, and I hope to see you. So bye for now. And please be aware that the more that we practice this method, particularly when we practice it together, the more we contribute to transforming global consciousness. So it's not just for our own sake that we're doing this. We're doing this to contribute to a higher dimension of consciousness worldwide. So bye for now, and I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.